We are back with our Week 13 reactions. There were a lot of games this week that came down to the wire. Divisional matchups, Steelers versus the Bengals, a big matchup between the Eagles and Ravens, fighting to be one of the top teams in the NFL, and starting things off in Baltimore. A lot of people are labeling this game as another instance where Lamar did not show up in a big game, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Lamar outplayed Jalen Hurts all game long against statistically the best defense in the NFL. Derrick Henry got things going. He wasn't completely shut down during the game. Mark Andrews made some big plays. Zay Flowers made some big plays. And the reason this Ravens team lost against the Eagles was because of Justin Tucker. And it has happened several times this season. They lost by 3 points to the Rams. Justin Tucker missed a kick in that game. Against the Steelers, Justin Tucker left 6 points on the field. And now he left 7 points on the field, and they lost by 5 points to the Eagles. So this Ravens team, it does not have a Lamar Jackson problem. They have a kicker problem who can't make kicks over 45 yards seemingly at all at this point in his career. I think his field goal made percentage is hovering around 72%. He's missed a couple extra points this season, and the only reason their offense hasn't been at the very, very top of the NFL is because their kicker isn't making kicks. When you look at the Steelers, who have won several one-score games, their kicker has made the most field goals in the NFL. They beat the Ravens just kicking field goals. So when your special teams, specifically Justin Tucker, is struggling as much as they have been, it is hard to win these close games, and a lot of the top teams in the NFL have a kicker that is executing at a high level.
Yeah, I think it's pretty baseless to blame all this on Justin Tucker. While I've certainly been off his hype train for a long time, it's been documented, look it up, I don't think saying, oh, he's the reason they lost does it justice. This Eagles team played a fantastic game of football, kept Derrick Henry in check, did not let him have any of those big, explosive home run balls. Lamar did some work on the ground, sure, but it just didn't quite feel as effective as it is other weeks. This defense really locked in. Even if Justin Tucker makes all his kicks and they score, 26 points, that is still a pretty bad showing for this Ravens offense. I also think if Tucker did make those kicks, the trajectory of this game does change a little bit. Maybe we see more Saquon usage, maybe we see more Jalen Hurts usage, and you say, oh, well, he didn't do that well against the Ravens defense. He didn't have to. It did 19 passes. If he had to air it out more against this sorry secondary, I am sure he could have put up 200, 250 yards through the air with how bad this team is defensively. Looking at the Eagles offense, Saquon Barkley should definitely be in the thick of the MVP race. He has been what has elevated this team from where it was last season. A depressing, 11-6, 12-5 team which got first rounded. That's not going to happen this year. They have a consistent offense, an engine to the offense in Barkley who can score and pick up big plays on absolutely anybody. 100 rushing yards on this Ravens run defense is really impressive. Barkley did a fantastic job. This team can go a long way in the NFC, and if the Lions keep sustaining injuries, I have a really hard time looking at the Eagles and saying, oh, there's a better team in the NFC than them.
Yeah, and my point, speaking about the Ravens, was not to diminish what the Eagles accomplished, because they played a very good game. I mean, you mentioned what they were able to accomplish against what has been the best run defense in the NFL from the Ravens. Saquon Barkley got it going. Jalen Hurts made the Ravens defense uncomfortable on the ground, but the Ravens defense still made some plays here and there. And because Justin Tucker missed so many kicks, they weren't really able to put pressure on Jalen Hurts and the Eagles' passing attack, which has, especially by me, been doubted at points during this season. They didn't put pressure on the fact that they were missing Devonta Smith and had to rely on A.J. Brown solely and what Dallas Goedert offers. So I think that played a significant part in the game, but for the Eagles, they did an excellent job of capitalizing on Justin Tucker missing those kicks and also forcing the Ravens into some uncomfortable situations where they didn't execute at the highest level we've seen all season.
I think if A.J. Brown is in the game, the Eagles' passing offense can still be very good. Losing him and having Devonta Smith in the lineup, it's just not the same, but Brown is clearly in that tier above that top 5 level receiver. Paired that with Goddard and Saquon Barkley, who are both hanging out near the line of scrimmage. I think they still have a pretty solid passing attack if called upon. With Devonta Smith out of the lineup, like you said, was not called upon because the run game was so controlling of the clock. And do you want to address the point at all that the Eagles are probably the best team in the NFC right now, given how beat up the Lions have gotten? They got 18 guys on the IR.
Well, I would definitely agree with you from what we've seen from the rest of the NFC, because the NFC East, Besides the Eagles, it's a disaster. The NFC North, you have the Vikings, who we'll talk about a little bit later, who have been very good. But then the Lions, also in the NFC North, their team has been completely destroyed by injuries, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So what will they look like come playoff time? Big question mark there. The NFC South, abject disaster.
South ain't rising.
The NFC West, everyone is back. We don't know who's going to come out of that division.
Not the 49ers. I don't think we're talking about much in this video, but it's not going to be the 49ers. I tell you that.
I would definitely agree that the Eagles are the best team in the NFC right now. With the injuries the Lions have sustained, maybe the Vikings make it a little...
Let's talk about the Vikings now. 13-point comeback. Beat the Arizona Cardinals at home. Sam Darnold looked completely different in the first half compared to the second half. Another game with over 100 passer rating really lit up the Cardinals defense, which has been playing at a top 5 level this past month prior to this game, and did everything in his power to get the Vikings the win despite trailing. This game should not have been as close as it was. The Vikings missed a field goal. Aaron Jones had yet another bad day of fumbles. Fumbled 2, lost 1. That cost the Vikings points, and their defense a few points just broke when it really hadn't. Having said that, the Cardinals are still a good team in my opinion. They've still been on a little bit of a hot streak with the exception of that Seahawks game, and I think they will wind up winning their division. For Minnesota, it's encouraging to see you can play down multiple scores, you can pass your way back into the game against a good defense, and looking ahead to next week's matchup against the Falcons, I don't know what that's going to look like with Kirk Cousins. I choose to believe Kirk Cousins, despite my feelings about him as a player, is not going to throw 4 more picks to the Minnesota Vikings, his former team. I doubt that happens 2 weeks in a row. If it does, dear God, that'd be funny. But I think the Vikings have a good chance of retaining that number 1 wildcard spot. I have a pretty good chance if the Lions start dropping games here and there, drop one to a good Packers team this week, of grabbing that 1 seed or the 2 seed in the NFC, grabbing that division title. And a lot is else. Clearly, well-coached team, pretty well executed in the second half, defense among the best in football. I don't really need to drone on about it. Minnesota's pretty good.
The only thing separating, well, it's a big thing. It's,
the minor thing of Saquon Barkley.
The only thing separating the Vikings from how optimists have talked about the Chiefs is the fact that the Chiefs are coming off of 2 Super Bowls. This Vikings team just finds ways to win football games. I mean, they're 2 points away from beating the Lions, and if Sam Darnold doesn't get his head ripped off against the Rams, they are very close to being an undefeated team. So while we have seen some question marks pop up about this Vikings team over the course of their season, even though their defense has been fantastic, at points it has shown the ability to give up some yards here and there when they are out, when Brian Flores is out schemed, albeit that happens rarely. And on offense, Sam Darnold has shown that he has a propensity to make some mistakes. But with how well coached they are on defense and offense, they're finding ways to win games. I think it is very encouraging that they are finally getting healthy. TJ Hockenson looks like the TJ Hockenson we've come to expect coming off that ACL injury from last year. Jordan Addison is really starting to get in the swing of things, and we know what we're going to get from a healthy Justin Jefferson every single week. So I think this Vikings team has a big chance of winning some games come playoff time, and the only thing you kind of doubt is, will Sam Darnold be able to get it done in the biggest moment in the playoffs?
Yeah, a few things. Well, Beal has been comparing this team to the 10-2 team from 2022. I think the pretty clear difference is right now they've got one of the best defenses in football. 2022, they had Ed Donatell, and despite having some veteran talent, they were pretty terrible. The point differential did not look anything like it does this year. That year, what? They were -3 on the season rolling into the playoffs. This year, they're top 5 in the league in point differential. They're a good team. No two ways about it. Can't really split too many hairs. If they're going to lose, it's going to be because Sam Darnold throws a bad pick or Aaron Jones cannot hold on to the ball. I want to say this before we move on. I think it is all right now to say officially the Vikings have overachieved on the year. Because I said, oh, this team's going to be better than people think. Their defense is going to be really good. Darnold's going to surprise some people. They're going to win 9 games in a rebuilding year. They're 10-2 right now. We are 13 weeks in, and this Vikings team has pretty much locked up a playoff spot. This is a very successful year, a very good coaching job from all parties in that Minnesota organization, and you have to give them their credit.
Yeah, they're healthier than a lot of other teams, and from a Sam Darnold perspective and a coaching perspective, they've been even better than anyone would come to expect. A big reason why I was lower on them to start the year was because I didn't believe in Sam Darnold, and I didn't really account for just how good Brian Flores would do on the defensive side side of the ball. So I think all around, if you're a Vikings fan, you're thrilled about this season, and I think they have a real chance to win a couple playoff games.
I don't know about that health comment. Darrisaw's gone for the year. Addison's missed time. Hawkinson missed time. Blake Cashman and Ivan Pace missed time. Their D-line's been banged up at points. The secondary had some injuries coming into the season. I don't even know if they're that healthy compared to the rest of the league. Compared to the 49ers, yeah, they have a team. They can put 11 guys out there on offense and defense. Compared to the Lions, yeah.
Compared to the top teams of the NFC that they're really competing for, they're more healthy than the Lions.
Eagles are pretty healthy.
Eagles are pretty healthy, but they're still missing Devon. The Eagles are, well, like I said, the Eagles are the best team in the NFC. But compared to some of the other top teams that have equal or slightly lesser talent.
I don't think they're that lucky in terms of injuries, but who isn't luckier than Detroit? We're going to roll into the Bengals Steelers. I'll let you do the Bengals Steelers. You, a lover of the Pittsburgh Steelers, a man who was not confident enough to stick with his Steelers are giving up 40 take, who backed down to 30 and was proven wrong.
I predicted the Bengals to win this game because I believed in the strength of Joe Burrow and this Bengals offense, and for the most part, I was right. Joe Burrow went for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. T. Higgins got in the end zone. Jamar Chase got in the end zone. They averaged over 6 yards a carry, and they took it to the Steelers defense. Although they had a pick six, in total they scored 38 points. However, what I completely underestimated, which I thought hopefully would be enough, I should have learned from prior performances this year, is that Bengals defense is just sorry. No matter how many points their offense scores, they just decide, oh, we're going to make it as difficult as possible for our team to even stay in this game. And they allowed Russell Wilson to throw for over 400 yards. We have 4 touchdowns, and Najee Harris kind of took over the game from the running back position. And just to show how situationally poor this Bengals defense is, I think it shows how poorly coached they are, is when Justin Fields comes onto the field to try and ice the game instead of Russell Wilson, who is dominating you through the air all game long. You know it's probably going to be a read option. You know it's probably going to be a quarterback designed run. And then the entire defense bites on the read option. So this Bengals team is pathetic. They deserve to lose. The Steelers were clearly better coached. They took advantage of a bad Bengals defense. And although their defense didn't look great, the Bengals do still have a special offense.
A big shout out to Mike Tomlin and his devil magic. Once again, a winning coach. His job, very safe. Russell Wilson also is probably pretty safe in his job. I know Bengals defense, yada, yada, 400 yards, 3 touchdowns. The very impressive performance he had through the air, paired with what he's done over the course of the year. A winning starting quarterback. I don't think he breaks the bank or anything, but I think the Steelers give him $30-40 million to play around with, and he is in Pittsburgh for the next 2 to 3 seasons. He's got that job locked up. The Steelers, you can score 44 points on the Bengals, you can score 12 on anybody. But I like this team a lot. They're very well coached. The defense is great. They've got high-end talent where they really need it to be. And George Pickens is slowly creeping into that top 5 wide receiver category. Fun team to watch. Najee Harris, people were calling him a bust, which makes no sense to me. He's a running back drafted at the tail end of the first round who has yet to have a season with less than 1,200 yards from scrimmage. Najee's pretty good, man. I like this team. They're fun to watch. The Bengals, they're eliminated from the playoffs. I hope we don't have to talk about them anymore from this point on. Taylor's gone. They're dealing with some injuries now, and it's just a rough go of things. You feel bad for all parties involved, except, of course, you really don't because the Bengals have terrible, obnoxious fans.
Well, something that will be super interesting for the Steelers as we evaluate how good they can be in the playoffs is over the last weeks of the season, they do have to play the Eagles, Ravens, and Chiefs. So over the course of those games, if they are able to take down the Eagles, if they're able to take down a team like the Chiefs, maybe they even put themselves in contention for the #1 overall seed if the Chiefs falter in a different game.
I don't see the Bills losing to the Lions, which I think would have to happen for them to the Steelers to get a shot at the 1 seed. I don't think they really stand a good chance at that. And people are going to pick this team apart because they're going to lose at least 1 and probably 2 of those games. Having the Eagles, Ravens, and Chiefs back-to-back weeks, 2 of which are on the road, is just a rough slate. So I'm not going to have my confidence drastically shaken in this team if they drop a game or 2. They are good at what you need to be good at to win playoff games.
I'm not saying they're going to win those games. I think you know who I'm probably picking.
Yeah, you're picking against them every single week.
But we're going to find out a lot about them over that 3-week stretch.
If you are doubting this team because they dropped 2 of those games, man, I don't know what to tell you. You are in for a pleasant treat for the playoffs. you will be shocked and shut up yet again.
Do we really think if they have to go on the road in the playoffs to play the Chiefs, they'd win that game?
What team do we think beats the Chiefs in Arrowhead in the playoffs?
The Bills, maybe.
Maybe, exactly. Like, that is an unfair thing. You could say the Eagles, you could say maybe the Lions. It wouldn't happen because they're in the NFC, but you can name 2 teams in football you would feel confident about doing that. That is not the measuring stick. Matt Eberflus, the Chinese dictionary, is being air delivered to your Chicago house as we speak. He's unemployed. The Bears are moving off him for Thomas Brown after a heartbreaking loss to the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving, which ruined the city of Chicago's chance to enjoy a pleasant time with their families, which of course I'm a big fan of. Those people deserve no happiness. Bears fans, of course, not Chicagoans. But this felt like it was coming from a long way out. It could have happened after the Hail Mary. It could have happened at some point during this losing streak. And the clock management, the final nail in the coffin, really did him in. I mean, what do you expect? I feel bad for him in a way because they told him, oh yeah, you're going to still be coaching next week. They let him go out there and do the Monday morning press conference or the Friday morning press conference, and then they fired him. That was kind of a scumbag move from the Bears, but are you shocked by this?
I mean, the tomfoolery that Matt Eberflus has propagated this season is only rivaled by some of the screenshots we have of Will Levis taking the field at the quarterback position with the mistakes that he has made. This time mismanagement is one of the worst things I've seen on an NFL field at the end of the game, and it is things like this that are allowed people to bring up the idea that teams should hire professional Madden players to handle the clock at the end of these games when you only have a couple timeouts, and time is of the utmost importance. I mean, when I think it was 32 seconds left on the clock to go win or tie the football game to go to overtime, and your rookie quarterback gets sacked, the immediate thought should be, let's call a timeout, call our best play, we can throw it to the middle of the field if we want to, then spike the ball, and then we have a chance at the end zone, or we have a chance at the sideline, or we can just throw the ball out of bounds and let our kicker send us to overtime. What did Matt Eberflus decide to do? He decided to let his offensive coordinator just send in a play call, make his rookie quarterback, who was just sacked, evaluate the situation, what he needed to do, and then everything crumbled from there. So it is the worst instance I've seen of time mismanagement at the end of a game.
You are clearly not familiar with our pal Andy Reid and some of the fine work he did on the Eagles. I digress. Part of the blame does go to Caleb Williams, obviously. He's the one who got to the line of scrimmage. He changed the play call, and he is looking at 2 clocks at the back of that end zone. One is the play clock, one is the game clock. I can only assume he got those 2 mixed up somehow and just was not keeping track at the time. Part of the blame undoubtedly goes to him, but he's the excuse of being a rookie quarterback. Eberflus, tenured head coach, been there forever. You have got to be better. That's just terrible stuff. I do find it somewhat funny. The offensive coordinator who sent in that play call, which confused Caleb Williams, had an audible avid, is now the head coach. Maybe this was an inside job. Perhaps a hit from Thomas Brown. I also understand why after recent weeks he would have absolutely zero faith in his idiot kicker. So some of the stuff, not entirely on Eberflus, but what are you going to do?
I disagree that Caleb Williams deserves really any of the blame, because I think what has been lost in the people that are putting blame on him is that he was sacked the play prior.
He's the highest paid rookie quarterback in NFL history, was the first overall pick. Yeah, there has to be some expectation.
None of that,
you can count
none of that
40.
matters.
Yeah, it absolutely matters.
Given
You're supposed to be a premier NFL talent. You can count. You can count after you get sacked, unless you got concussion, in which case, stay down, burn that last time out on the field, and just accept it. That is partial on Caleb Williams. We cannot hand wave this. Eberflus deserves a majority of the blame, but I'm not letting it just wipe away yet another Caleb Williams.
There's a reason that plays come in from the sideline and quarterbacks don't call the whole game, because they have a lot of other things they have to worry about. They actually have to worry about playing and executing the play calls. So when it comes to something as simple as managing the clock and the timeouts you have left, and your quarterback just got sacked because your offensive line just let the edge rushers run by you, which maybe that has a little bit to do with Thomas Brown wanting the interim head coaching. Maybe he told the offensive tackles to do that. But when that happens, it is very easy. And if you want to put any blame, maybe 5% of the blame is on Caleb, but in that situation, 95% is on Eberflus.
Are you saying quarterbacks are not responsible for managing the clock on the field? Are we really doing that? Like, the excuse, it's not a big long-term thing for Caleb, because he's a rookie, he'll get better at it. But yeah, he screwed that one up. There's no point in trying to say he doesn't. It's on Eberflus. I know he's gone. He's easier to scapegoat now, but come on. That's partially on Caleb Williams. I'd like to talk about Caleb Williams' performance a little bit this game as well, so we just don't get bogged down to Eberflus. Terrible first half, really good second half, terrible final sequence of plays there. I don't know how you evaluate that in its totality if you choose not to blame him for the clock manager at the end. I think he had a fine game against the banged-up Lions defense, but he's definitely taken a step back from what he did the previous week against the Minnesota Vikings.
If we've learned anything about rookie quarterbacks this season and the situations they're placed into, it is that coaching matters significantly. We've seen Jaden Daniels be wildly successful with a very solid, which has proven to be a very solid coaching staff. We have seen Bo Nix be extremely successful with one of the greatest head coaches of all time, with what he did with Drew Brees during his time with the Saints.
One of the greatest head coaches of all time does not go 7-9 3 straight years with prime Drew Brees. Let's not do that. One Super Bowl, that's one of the greatest coaches of all time.
That doesn't really matter. We have seen the importance of coaching, and I think the notion prior to the season that Caleb Williams was in the best situation of all time, was doing the talent on the Bears roster, was doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and people weren't really taking into account the coaching situation.
I think you could still probably argue it's better than any other first overall pick quarterback who didn't have them trade up for the pick. I mean, you look at what T-Law wound up in, you look at what Bryce Young wound up in. This Bears team, despite its many issues, is still a lot better than those landing spots. I think the mistake was assuming the best situation automatically meant it was a good situation.
That would be a good point when comparing him to the other first overall pick.
I don't even have that much to say about Trevor Lawrence besides that maybe, just maybe, he should have gone down sooner, and posting a still screenshot of him running at 20 miles an hour as he's starting to go down when Aziz is not in the picture is not the best argument to back up the fact he slid late. There are definitely quarterbacks in the NFL who have been sliding late or faking slides to the benefit of their offenses this year, so I can understand Aziz not pulling up at that much. You still can't throw your elbow into a guy's head and dribble it off the ground in an NFL game. It's not good optically, particularly to a quarterback who is in Florida. We know what it looks like, man. Come on.
Especially when Aziz...
And you also can't be thanking Allah in the Twitter apology post you have when people are already calling you a football terrorist. Like, it's just bad optics.
And Aziz, this season, he's had a history of some dirty hits. He had a play where I think it hit Caleb Williams late out of bounds and then was throwing punches at Roschon Johnson. So he's had other plays this season where he has not been a clean player.
He also chokeslammed Tom Brady in Tampa, so it's not just this year.
He has a history of it. So I think him denying that and saying he doesn't try and hurt people is a little silly when we have evidence of him doing the exact opposite, players going out of bounds, and he's just laying them out in the back.
I will say, not all defensive players, obviously, not even most of them, but it is undoubtable that the highest collection of idiots in the NFL is either at the wide receiver position or really any defensive position you can think of. These are dumb people with limited spatial awareness who are getting by on a tremendous amount of athleticism. If they were smarter, they'd be playing somewhere on the offense, which pays more. And it leads to stuff like this. Also, angry people in general. You kind of have to have an edge to play football. You need even more of an edge to play defense, particularly at the highest of levels. So it makes sense some of these reactions are coming in. I don't know where I'm going with that.
We can end the video if you want.
I don't know where. Kirk Cousins stinks. Look, do people even want a Kirk Cousins segment? What do we need to say about the man? Do we need to kick him while he's down? Do we need to call for Michael Penix to come in? What did you expect? Terrible drafting, terrible mismanagement of contracts. I'm glad he's not the Minnesota Vikings quarterback. And we'll see you next week.
Maybe with Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers, we don't
if you
rely on quarterbacks off Achilles
their best
injuries.
Traits, you may have one good quarterback between the two of them.
Or you don't rely on old quarterbacks off of Achilles injuries to bring you to the promised land.
Yeah, unless you've got Tom Brady hiring a well past his prime quarterback to lead you on a supposed good team. May not be a recipe for success, particularly if you do not have a defensive line.
That has been our Week 13 reactions. Let us know what you think down in the comments below. Like the video, subscribe, use code Thicc on Underdog. Bonus cash up to $1,000, and we'll see you in the next one.